Nitrous oxide, commonly known as laughing gas, nitrous, nitro, or nose, is a chemical compound with the formula N2O. It is an oxide of nitrogen. At room temperature, it is a colorless, non-flammable gas, with a slightly sweet odor and taste. It is used in surgery and dentistry for its anesthetic and analgesic effects. It is known as laughing gas due to the euphoric effects of inhaling it, a property that has led to its recreational use as a dissociative anesthetic. It is also used as an oxidizer in rockets and in motor racing to increase the power output of engines. At elevated temperatures, nitrous oxide is a powerful oxidizer similar to molecular oxygen. Nitrous oxide gives rise to nitric oxide on reaction with oxygen atoms, and this NO in turn reacts with ozone. As a result, it is the main naturally occurring regulator of stratospheric ozone. It is also a major greenhouse gas and air pollutant. Considered over a 100-year period, it is calculated to have between 265 and 310 times more impact per unit mass than carbon dioxide. It is on the WHO model list of essential medicines, the most important medications needed in a health system. Applications: rocket motors. Nitrous oxide can be used as an oxidizer in a rocket motor. This has the advantages over other oxidizers in that it is not only non-toxic, but also, due to its stability at room temperature, easy to store and relatively safe to carry on a flight. As a secondary benefit, it can be readily decomposed to form breathing air. Its high density and low storage pressure enable it to be highly competitive with stored high-pressure gas systems. In a 1914 patent, American rocket pioneer Robert Goddard suggested nitrous oxide and gasoline as possible propellants for a liquid-fueled rocket. Nitrous oxide has been the oxidizer of choice in several hybrid rocket designs. The combination of nitrous oxide with hydroxyl-terminated polybutadiene fuel has been used by Spaceship One and others. It is also notably used in amateur and high-power rocketry with various plastics as the fuel. Nitrous oxide can also be used in a monopropellant rocket. In the presence of a heated catalyst, N2O will decompose exothermically into nitrogen and oxygen. At a temperature of approximately 1070 degrees Fahrenheit, http://spg-corp.com/nitrous-oxide-safety.html. Because of the large heat release, the catalytic action rapidly becomes secondary as thermal auto-decomposition becomes dominant. In a vacuum thruster, this can provide a monopropellant-specific impulse of as much as 180 s, while noticeably less than the ISP available from hydrazine thrusters. The decreased toxicity makes nitrous oxide an option worth investigating. Nitrous oxide is said to deflagrate somewhere around 600 degrees Celsius at a pressure of 21 atmospheres. It can also easily be ignited using a combination of the two. At 600 psi, for example, the required ignition energy is only 6 joules, whereas N2O at 130 psi, a 2500 joule ignition energy input is insufficient. Specific impulse can be improved by blending a hydrocarbon fuel with the nitrous oxide inside the same storage tank, becoming a nitrous oxide fuel blend monopropellant. This storage mixture does not incur the danger of spontaneous ignition, since N2O is chemically stable. When the nitrous oxide decomposes by a heated catalyst, high-temperature oxygen is released and rapidly ignites the hydrocarbon fuel blend. NOFB monopropellants are capable of ISP greater than 300 seconds, while avoiding the toxicity associated with hypergolic propulsion systems. The low freezing point of NOFB eases thermal management compared to hydrazine and dinitrogen tetroxide, a valuable property for space-storable propellants. Internal combustion engine in vehicle racing. Nitrous oxide allows the engine to burn more fuel by providing more oxygen than air alone, resulting in a more powerful combustion. The gas itself is not flammable at a low pressure temperature. but it delivers more oxygen than atmospheric air by breaking down at elevated temperatures. Therefore, it is often mixed with another fuel that is easier to deflagrate. Nitrous oxide is stored as a compressed liquid. The evaporation and expansion of liquid nitrous oxide in the intake manifold causes a large drop in intake charge temperature, resulting in a denser charge, further allowing more air-fuel mixture to enter the cylinder. Nitrous oxide is sometimes injected into the intake manifold, whereas other systems directly inject right before the cylinder to increase power. The technique was used during World War II by Luftwaffe aircraft with the GM-1 system to boost the power output of aircraft engines. Originally meant to provide the Luftwaffe standard aircraft with superior high-altitude performance, technological considerations limited its use to extremely high altitudes. Accordingly, it was only used by specialized planes like high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft, high-speed bombers, and high-altitude interceptor aircraft. It could sometimes be found on Luftwaffe aircraft also fitted with another engine boost system, MW50, a form of water injection for aviation engines that used methanol for its boost capabilities. One of the major problems of using nitrous oxide in a reciprocating engine is that it can produce enough power to damage or destroy the engine. Very large power increases are possible, and if the mechanical structure of the engine is not properly reinforced, the engine may be severely damaged or destroyed during this kind of operation. It is very important with nitrous oxide augmentation of petrol engines to maintain proper operating temperatures and fuel levels to prevent pre-ignition or detonation. Most problems that are associated with nitrous do not come from mechanical failure due to the power increases. Since nitrous allows a much denser charge into the cylinder, it dramatically increases cylinder pressures. The increased pressure and temperature can cause problems such as melting the piston or valves. It may also crack or warp the piston or head and cause pre-ignition due to uneven heating. Automotive-grade liquid nitrous oxide differs slightly from medical-grade nitrous oxide. A small amount of sulfur dioxide is added to prevent substance abuse. Multiple washes through a base can remove this, decreasing the corrosive properties observed when SO2 is further oxidized during combustion into sulfuric acid, making emissions cleaner. Aerosol propellant. The gas is approved for use as a food additive, specifically as an aerosol spray propellant. Its most common uses in this context are in aerosol whipped cream canisters, cooking sprays, and as an inert gas used to displace oxygen to inhibit bacterial growth, when filling packages of potato chips and other similar snack foods. The gas is extremely soluble in fatty compounds. In aerosol whipped cream, it is dissolved in the fatty cream until it leaves the can, when it becomes gaseous and thus creates foam. Used in this way, it produces whipped cream 4 times the volume of the liquid, whereas whipping air into cream only produces twice the volume. If air were used as a propellant, oxygen would accelerate rancidification of the butterfat. Nitrous oxide inhibits such degradation. Carbon dioxide cannot be used for whipped cream because it is acidic in water, which would curdle the cream and give it a seltzer-like, sparkling sensation. However, the whipped cream produced with nitrous oxide is unstable and will return to a more liquid state within half an hour to 1 hour. Thus, the method is not suitable for decorating food that will not be immediately served. Similarly, cooking spray, which is made from various types of oils combined with lecithin, may use nitrous oxide as a propellant. Other propellants used in cooking spray include food-grade alcohol and propane. Users of nitrous oxide often obtain it from whipped cream dispensers that use nitrous oxide as a propellant. For recreational use as a euphoria-inducing inhalant drug, it is not harmful in small doses, but risks due to lack of oxygen do exist. Medicine. Nitrous oxide has been used for anesthesia in dentistry since December 1844, where Horace Wells made the first 12 to 15 dental operations with the gas in Hartford. Its debut as a generally accepted method, however, came in 1863, when Gardner Quincy Colton introduced it more broadly at all the Colton Dental Association clinics that he founded in New Haven and New York City. The first devices used in dentistry to administer the gas, known as nitrous oxide inhalers, were designed in a very simple way, with the gas stored and breathed through a breathing bag made of rubber cloth, without a scavenger system and flowmeter, and with no addition of oxygen, air. Today these simple and somewhat unreliable inhalers have been replaced by the more modern relative analgesia machine, which is an automated machine designed to deliver a precisely dosed and breath-actuated flow of nitrous oxide mixed with oxygen, for the patient to inhale safely. The machine used in dentistry is designed as a simplified version of the larger anesthetic machine used by hospitals, as it doesn't feature the additional anesthetic vaporizer and medical ventilator. The purpose of the machine allows for a simpler design, as it only delivers a mixture of nitrous oxide and oxygen for the patient to inhale, in order to depress the feeling of pain while keeping the patient in a conscious state. Relative analgesia machines typically feature a constant supply flow meter, which allow the proportion of nitrous oxide and the combined gas flow rate to be individually adjusted. The gas is administered by dentists through a demand valve inhaler over the nose, which will only release gas when the patient inhales through the nose. Because nitrous oxide is minimally metabolized in humans, it retains its potency when exhaled into the room by the patient, and can pose an intoxicating and prolonged exposure hazard to the clinic staff if the room is poorly ventilated. Where nitrous oxide is administered, a continuous flow fresh air ventilation system or nitrous scavenger system is used to prevent a waste gas buildup. Hospitals administer nitrous oxide as one of the anesthetic drugs delivered by anesthetic machines. Nitrous oxide is a weak general anesthetic, and so is generally not used alone in general anesthesia. In general anesthesia it is used as a carrier gas in a 2-to-1 ratio with oxygen for more powerful general anesthetic drugs such as sevoflurane or desflurane. It has a minimum alveolar concentration of 105% and a blood-gas partition coefficient of 0.46. The medical-grade gas tanks, with the trade name Entonox and Nitronox, contain a mixture with 50%. But this will normally be diluted to a lower percentage upon the operational delivery to the patient. Inhalation of nitrous oxide is frequently used to relieve pain associated with childbirth, trauma, oral surgery, and acute coronary syndrome. Its use during labor has been shown to be a safe and effective aid for women wanting to give birth without an epidural. Its use for acute coronary syndrome is of unknown benefit. In Britain and Canada, Entonox and Nitronox are commonly used by ambulance crews as a rapid and highly effective analgesic gas. Nitrous oxide has been shown to be effective in treating a number of addictions, including alcohol withdrawal. Nitrous oxide is also gaining interest as a substitute gas for carbon dioxide in laparoscopic surgery. It has been found to be as safe as carbon dioxide with better pain relief. Recreational use nitrous oxide can cause analgesia, depersonalization, derealization, dizziness, euphoria, and some sound distortion. Research has also found that it increases suggestibility and imagination. Inhalation of nitrous oxide for recreational use, with the purpose of causing euphoria and/or slight hallucinations, began as a phenomenon for the British upper class in 1799, known as laughing gas parties. Until at least 1863, a low availability of equipment to produce the gas, combined with the low usage of the gas for medical purposes, meant it was a relatively rare phenomenon that mainly happened among students at medical universities. When equipment became more widely available for dentistry in hospitals, most countries also restricted the legal access to buy pure nitrous oxide gas cylinders to those sectors, despite only medical staff and dentists today being legally allowed to buy the pure gas. A Consumers Union report from 1972 found that the use of the gas for recreational purpose was then still taking place. Based upon reports of its use in Maryland 1971, Vancouver 1972, and a survey made by Dr. Edward J. Lynn of its non-medical use in Michigan 1970. It was not uncommon, in the interviews, to hear from individuals who had been to parties where a professional had provided nitrous oxide. There also were those who work in restaurants who used the N2O stored in tanks for the preparation of whipped cream. Reports were received from people who used the gas contained in aerosol cans both of food and non-food products. At a recent rock festival, nitrous oxide was widely sold for 25 cents a balloon. Contact was made with a mystical religious group that used the gas to accelerate arriving at their transcendental meditative state of choice. Although a few, more sophisticated users employed nitrous oxide oxygen mixers with elaborate equipment, most users used balloons or plastic bags. They either held a breath of N2O or rebreathed the gas. There were no adverse effects reported in the more than 100 individuals surveyed. In Australia, nitrous oxide bulbs are known as nangs, possibly derived from the sound distortion perceived by consumers. In the United Kingdom, nitrous oxide is used by almost 500,000 young people at night spots, festivals and parties. In August 2015, the London Borough of Lambeth Council banned the use of the drug for recreational purposes, making offenders liable to an on-the-spot fine of up to £1,000. Mechanism of action. The pharmacological mechanism of action of N2O in medicine is not fully known. However, it has been shown to directly modulate a broad range of ligand-gated ion channels, and this likely plays a major role in many of its effects. It moderately blocks NMDA and beta-2 subunit containing NAC channels, weakly inhibits AMPA, kainate, GABAC, and 5-HT3 receptors, and slightly potentiates GABAA and glycine receptors. It has also been shown to activate 2,4 domain K+ channels. While N2O affects quite a few ion channels, its anesthetic, hallucinogenic, and euphoriant effects are likely caused predominantly or fully via inhibition of NMDAR-mediated currents. In addition to its effects on ion channels, N2O may act to imitate nitric oxide in the central nervous system, and this may be related to its analgesic and anxiolytic properties. Anxiolytic effect. In behavioral tests of anxiety, a low dose of N2O is an effective anxiolytic, and this anti-anxiety effect is associated with enhanced activity of GABAA receptors, as it is partially reversed by benzodiazepine receptor antagonists. Mirroring this, animals which have developed tolerance to the anxiolytic effects of benzodiazepines are partially tolerant to N2O. Indeed, in humans given 30% N2O, benzodiazepine receptor antagonists reduced the subjective reports of feeling high, but did not alter psychomotor performance, in human clinical studies. Analgesic effect. The analgesic effects of N2O are linked to the interaction between the endogenous opioid system and the descending noradrenergic system. When animals are given morphine chronically, they develop tolerance to its pain-killing effects, and this also renders the animals tolerant to the analgesic effects of N2O. Administration of antibodies which bind and block the activity of some endogenous opioids also block the antinociceptive effects of N2O. Drugs which inhibit the breakdown of endogenous opioids also potentiate the antinociceptive effects of N2O. Several experiments have shown that opioid receptor antagonists applied directly to the brain block the antinociceptive effects of N2O. But these drugs have no effect when injected into the spinal cord. Conversely, alpha-2 adrenoceptor antagonists block the pain-reducing effects of N2O when given directly to the spinal cord. but not when applied directly to the brain. Indeed, alpha-2b adrenoceptor knockout mice or animals depleted in norepinephrine are nearly completely resistant to the antinociceptive effects of N2O. Apparently N2O-induced release of endogenous opioids causes disinhibition of brainstem noradrenergic neurons, which release norepinephrine into the spinal cord and inhibit pain signaling. Exactly how N2O causes the release of endogenous opioid peptides is still uncertain. Euphoric effect in rats. N2O stimulates the mesolimbic reward pathway via inducing dopamine release and activating dopaminergic neurons in the ventral tegmental area and nucleus accumbens, presumably through antagonization of NMDA receptors localized in the system. This action has been implicated in its euphoric effects, and notably, appears to augment its analgesic properties as well. However, it is remarkable that in mice, N2O blocks amphetamine-induced carrier-mediated dopamine release in the nucleus accumbens and behavioral sensitization, abolishes the conditioned place preference of cocaine and morphine, and does not produce reinforcing effects of its own. Studies on CPP of N2O in rats is mixed, consisting of reinforcement, aversion, and no change. In contrast, it is a positive reinforcer in squirrel monkeys, and is well known as a drug of abuse in humans. These discrepancies in response to N2O may reflect species variation or methodological differences. In human clinical studies, N2O was found to produce mixed responses similarly to rats, reflecting high subjective individual variability. Neurotoxicity and neuroprotection. Like other NMDA antagonists, N2O was suggested to produce neurotoxicity in the form of Olney's lesions in rodents upon prolonged exposure. However, new research has arisen suggesting that Olney's lesions do not occur in humans, and similar drugs like ketamine are now believed not to be acutely neurotoxic. It has been argued that, because N2O has a very short duration under normal circumstances, it is less likely to be neurotoxic than other NMDA antagonists. Indeed, in rodents, short-term exposure results in only mild injury that is rapidly reversible, and permanent neuronal death only occurs after constant and sustained exposure. Nitrous oxide may also cause neurotoxicity after extended exposure because of hypoxia. This is especially true of non-medical formulations such as whipped cream charges, which are not necessarily mixed with oxygen. Additionally, nitrous oxide depletes vitamin B12 levels. This can cause serious neurotoxicity with even acute use if the user has pre-existing vitamin B12 deficiency. Nitrous oxide is also neuroprotective, inhibiting glutamate-induced excitotoxicity.